Good evening. It is Tuesday, December 21st, 2010. Christmas is 4 days away. I can't believe it's already here. Can't believe 2011 is going to begin. Next week or the week after, I'm going to make a video similar to the one I made last year, reflecting upon 2010 and talking about what I expect or what we should expect from 2011. But today I want to address what is an extremely important issue, in my view, and that is the freedom of the internet. Now, the internet, in my opinion, is the greatest thing that has happened to the United States, to the world, in a lot of ways, in a long time. It is an extremely free and open system. Anybody with any sort of opinion, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter how controversial it is allowed to go online and post their views. My video blog, the TSA blog I made a month ago, 700 views. I mean, that's not a lot compared to what other people get, but I mean, that little 10-minute video I made, it took me about 20 minutes to create. I mean, it had the effect of me going into an auditorium of 700 people and speaking my mind about the TSA. You think the government likes that? I mean, this is a great system. And it's completely free market. There's no regulation. Government has no hand in it. And so far, it's been running great. There are no problems with the internet. However, right now, there are certain people who are trying to create a crisis out of nothing. They're saying that the internet, they are saying that the internet needs regulation, that needs the FCC to step in and promote what they call net neutrality. But nothing's broken. There's nothing wrong with the internet. Everything is working just fine. Yet they're trying to create this crisis because, like I mentioned last time, or the time before, the left loves a good crisis because that gives them an excuse to act. And not just the left, the neoconservatives as well. No Child Left Behind, the Patriot Act, etc. So what is net neutrality, so to speak? Well, basically today the FCC just approved new rules that will, for the very first time, give the federal government authority to regulate internet traffic in the name of preventing broadband providers, internet providers, from selectively blocking web traffic. An example would be Verizon, if the Verizon web service, if they had their own video rental website that would compete with Netflix, if they slowed down web traffic to Netflix, thereby helping their business. The FCC says that net neutrality is to, quote, preserve internet freedom and openness, end quote. But so far, I mean, there are no examples, there's nothing that's happened so far to justify doing any of this. It seems like the FCC doesn't feel a need to do it, they just want to do it. And, you know, I think there's all these different laws that are being passed are so Orwellian. Because, once again, net neutrality, who's going to be against, I mean, it sounds so nice, like, who doesn't want a neutral internet? The Patriot Act, who doesn't want to be a patriot? The food safety bill, who doesn't want to have food safety? Healthcare reform, who doesn't want to reform the healthcare system? So they give all these laws these names that make it very difficult to argue against, and makes it very unpopular to oppose, even though the legislation would do the very opposite of what they say. The Patriot Act was not patriotic because it was unconstitutional. In fact, it was the very opposite of patriotism. The food safety bill is not going to make our food safer. It was written by Big Agro and Monsanto and all those people. It was written by corporate interest. It's not going to make our food safe at all. Healthcare reform is not reforming the healthcare system, it's making it worse. It was written by the big insurance companies who are going to make a ton of money now because you are required to buy their health insurance. Net neutrality is not going to make the internet, is not going to, quote, preserve internet freedom. It's going to introduce, for the first time, regulation of the internet. Now, why do we need this? And I think that it's, and a lot of other people are saying the same thing, I think this is a way for the government to potentially shut down free speech. and shut down websites that have controversial opinions and who say things that the government does not approve of. Look at Hugo Chavez. He's praising all this internet regulation. In Venezuela, they have a law called the, quote, social responsibility law. Same thing as I said earlier, very Orwellian. Who's against social responsibility? The social responsibility law is government regulation of the internet in Venezuela, and it bans any website that, quote, disrespects public authorities and, quote, incites or promotes hatred, end quote. And so this is the law of Venezuela. Now, the FCC is not coming right out and saying that, but knows everything is done piecemeal. And once you open that door for government regulation of the internet, it's just going to get wider and wider and wider. And before you know it, the internet will not look like it does today. And like I said earlier in my blog, the government does not like that people like me and you and millions of others can go online and speak our minds freely. I mean, several hundred views, again, is not a lot in relative to how much traffic the internet gets, but it's still a lot. And if you compound that and take millions of blogs, each getting hundreds of views, I mean, that's reaching millions and millions of people. They do not like that. They would rather have the internet look like cable television, where you have establishment websites like YouTube, Google, and I know I'm on YouTube right now, but they would rather have the web very regulated and pro-establishment. Besides, this FCC action is completely unconstitutional. Congress is not voting on this legislation. The FCC is just doing it. And I don't think net neutrality would ever pass the Senate or the House. So this is unconstitutional. It's a threat to free speech on the internet. We don't need to fix anything about the internet. It's fine just the way it is. Senator Al Franken said this was, quote, the free speech issue of our lifetimes. Unfortunately, he's right. Unfortunately, he's on the wrong side of it. He's siding with the anti-free speech side, and he wants government to regulate. The alternative media on the internet is very powerful right now, and you better bet that the political establishment does not like that. They do not like that Matt Drudge or Alex Jones or YouTube bloggers or whoever, Facebook groups, are allowed to say whatever they want on the internet, and they would rather curtail that. But one thing a question I have for people who support bills like this and others, mostly the so-called left wing, why does the left assume benevolence on the part of the government? They always do. They talk about corporations all the time, and they're right. When corporations are in bed with government, that's really bad. I mean, we don't want that either. But that's a problem of big government. If you don't have big government, then corporations aren't going to be in bed with government because there's no special privileges to be doled out. But the left always assumes that government is looking out for the public interest. Now, why do they assume that? That's a huge assumption, and it goes against all of history. Benevolent governments are the exception in history. 95% of governments in world history have been oppressive, dictatorial, anti-liberty. It's been only a very tiny minority, the early Greek republics, the early Roman Republic before it became an empire, the United States, and some European governments. It's only been a very tiny minority in world history that have been even just slightly benevolent. Yet the left assumes that government is always benevolent. And why is the left so eager to have government regulate the internet? I see bloggers on Huffington Post saying, "Oh, we don't want corporations to run the internet," as if if in a free market society, if Verizon decides to slow down web traffic to certain websites and the subscribers to their service get mad enough, they can subscribe to another provider. That's called the free market, competition, entrepreneurship. If corporations are really unjustly blocking web traffic, then you can go to a different provider. That's the beauty of competition and free market. But with the government, you can't escape the government because the government has a monopoly. And if the government even if the government is benevolent now, let's say in 4 years, if you're watching this and you're a leftist, let's say in 4 years Sarah Palin is president. Do you really want Sarah Palin to regulate the internet? I mean, we don't need government to regulate the internet because it's too dangerous, and it's doing just fine the way it is. We need to protect the internet. That is so important. It's so integral. If we lose the internet, then we lose this battle. We lose this fight for liberty, because I don't see any other way to spread the message. I mean, we'd have to go back to old school pamphlets, like Thomas Paine and all those guys did. But, so hopefully people will wake up to this and say no and stand their ground, because we have to keep this free. All right, I'm rambling now. Have a very Merry Christmas, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.